Dr. Andy Galpin, welcome to Project 100, mate.
It's a pleasure to finally be here.
Yeah, well, you've been to Australia. You're in Australia, I think. Did you come to Australia for the UFC in February?
One of my athletes that I coach was down there.
You didn't make it over here?
No, I didn't make it down.
And of course, we have a common friend, Jordan Sullivan. Jordy's a great mate of ours. He's actually been on the show, been on his show too, for that matter. One of our great dietitians in this country, particularly for the fight game. What our project is about is living to 100 years of age. And I mean, of course, a lot of people are talking about that sort of stuff. I'm probably one of the few dudes who are nearly close to that age. So I'm closing in on very quickly. And I got a 7-0 this time next year. So I probably am more qualified, much more relevant to be chasing that number than most people. And what we want to talk to you about today is something really important, that is exercise. The exercise as part of the project, and exercise regimes, particularly for people in, say, 60 and over. But before I do that, would you mind just running through your qualifications? Because we've got to make sure that our audience understands we have a person here who is of authority, apart from being persuasive, but is also authoritatively persuasive based on academic education.
Sure. Yeah, I've got a PhD in what's called human bioenergetics. So this is a fancy way of thinking kind of muscle metabolisms and how muscle itself specifically creates energy and does that. But prior to that, I've got a master's degree in human movement sciences and an undergraduate degree in kinesiology as well. So I've been active in this field for quite some time scientifically. For the last almost 14 years, I've been running a research laboratory known as the Center for Sport Performance. So within that center, we conduct and disseminate research all across the spectrum of human performance. So this is, and certainly includes exercise research, nutrition, supplementation, mental health, yoga, breath work, and sort of anything that we feel like can enhance human performance, from biochemistry, biomechanics, sports psychology, exercise physiology, any of those broad fields. More recently, I've moved my laboratory, and we're now building a brand new 64,000 square foot human performance center in Dallas, Texas, of course, here in the States. So academically, that's what I've been doing for, again, I started my lab in 2011, so 14 years there. But along the way, I've also worked directly with, and I still do work with, many humans. Most famously, just like Jordy you mentioned earlier, we talk about our athletes. I've coached professional athletes. Jordy and I have coached against each other for world championships in the UFC, which was fun. But I've worked with gold medalists, Olympic champions, world record holders in probably 14 or 15 sports. I've worked with men and women, 18-year-olds to 45-year-olds. And they're just talking professional athletes, right? So endurance athletes, power lifters, football players, soccer players, and race car drivers, and everyone in between. But by numbers, I've actually spent most of my time working directly with non-athletes. So the centurion athlete, the 70-year-olds, the longevity people, this is what most of my people in my coaching company that come to work with us, the vast majority are not athletes, and a huge percentage of them are after longevity. And so we've been doing that for a number of years with a lot of success. So academically, I could certainly talk about the science of it, but then also practically what actually works, what should people be doing. We've got a pretty good handle on that as well.
And I also note that because we sent our chief science officer over to the United States more recently, and she went and did your Vitality Blueprint blood panel test, if that's the best way to explain it.
Yeah,
and you've got the Vitality Blueprint business. Quickly tell us about that. We'll talk a little bit more about that down the track. But what is that?
Yeah, this is the first and only thing in the world that is blood work for optimal performance. And so every other company out there is going to look at blood from a medical perspective, from a disease risk, which is important. That's great, but they all can play in that game. What we do is we look at blood from the perspective of, how do you go from good to great? How do we go from not just saying, I don't have diabetes yet, but this is in the optimal spot to give me the next 50 years, 60 years of high performance, maximum capacity. And so blood is analyzed and interpreted all for you from that perspective, not from cardiovascular disease risk, not from diabetes or anything like that, but saying, how do we take what's in you right now and let you perform better and in a way that's going to set you up for the long term? So it's all analyzed, interpreted for you, and then very specific protocols are built to optimize not just the marker that is high or low, but the actual cause of why that thing is high or low. And so we try to solve it for, again, the long term.
So yes. So in Australia, I'd say, I think it'd be fair to say, because I've done a fair bit of research on this. And by the way, I have to be clear to you that I have no scientific or medical background whatsoever. I'm actually an economist. So,
Okay.
but I do have a major view on my own personal position in terms of, like all of us selfishly, wanting to live to a longer period, or optimize my living for the longest period that God's going to give to me, and also try and manipulate God a little bit to give me a little bit longer if I possibly can, which is why I'm talking to people like yourself, and largely those at this stage. Most of the experts we've had on are Australian specialists. Like urologists and, dermatologists and heart specialists and neurologists, et cetera, for the brain. So, and this is our first time to talk to someone we've had Geordie on, but that's more about diet. But this is the first time we've had an opportunity to talk to someone about exercise relative to living longer for people, say, 50 and over. But in Australia, we do not have blood tests like you're talking about. So, I go to my GP. I'm lucky enough I can actually ask my GP for extra stuff. Generally speaking, though, most people go to their GP in Australia and ask for a blood test. The GP decides what they're going to get tested, and the result goes to the GP. The patient never sees it, and unless there's something really crazy on there, the GP, generally speaking, doesn't even call you back. And that's for looking for risks. I think what you're saying, and correct me if I'm wrong, you're looking for, what does my blood tell me for performance?
Yes and no. What do we tell it for performance? I need to be careful when we say that, because I do not want people to hear that and think, oh, that's only for sports, and I'm not a sport athlete, then it doesn't matter. So yes, but when we use the word performance, that could be cognitive performance, that could be energy, that could be leadership, it could be physical recovery. So when I say performance, I'm not meaning sport. If you want to use those to be better at sport, well, that's just great. Go ahead. But the difference is, I'm not going to look at your blood ever and say, there's nothing wrong with it. I'm going to look at it always and say, okay, this could be a little bit better. This could be a little bit better. It's not necessarily a medical cutoff. You're not medically high. You're not clinically deficient. You don't have a disease risk. I'm looking at it and saying, oh, this could be optimized right here. We could dial up your immune system a little bit better right there. Inflammation is actually addressing a little bit of brain recall or reaction time. This can be dialed up here to get better performance. And if you want to use that for sports, again, great. But if you're saying, hey, I just want to feel better right now, that is exactly what we're looking for. And we're not going to do it in a way that compromises your long-term health. We don't give out medications. We don't give out steroids or hormones, not against those things. But we are simply looking at this from the perspective of saying, if something is suboptimal in your body, before it becomes even close to a medical issue, we can intervene right now and get it back on track. I have to mention, though, it's funny you said that there are no services like this in Australia, because Vitality Blueprint is now in Australia.
Oh, wow. When did you guys open up?
It's not officially announced yet.
Okay.
But it is now available by the time this comes out, probably like within any day now, or even yesterday. I'm not exactly official, but we just got it available. So you can do this in two ways. One, if you have any recent blood work, you can just simply upload it to our system, and it will do all this analysis interpretation for you and let you build your plan.
Wow.
The other way is, if you don't have it, you can now order it through us in Australia, get it all taken care of. And I wish I had the exact date. I'm not the sales guy. I'm not the business guy. I should have had that prepared here, but yeah, we're open for business in Australia, and we've done a handful of little companies as little projects and pilots, and it's gone great. So it's time to open up the floodgate with Vitality in Australia.
Well, so we'll put that in the show notes anyway. We'll find out that information, and we'll put it up there for anybody who's listening to the show if they want to go and get a blood test. In fact, I'm going to be one of the first to go and do it, or I might just upload my most recent blood test if I can do that into I presume it's a website or is it an app? Vitality is.
Yeah, either one. VitalityBlueprint.com. Yeah.
Okay, that's cool. Okay, I'm excited now all of a sudden because the problem is here in our country is that as opposed to what's going on in the US and probably other places in the world, Australians we're pretty relaxed. Everything's going to be all right, mate. She's cool. We're pretty lucky. We're a pretty healthy nation. We don't have dramas. We don't have sort of pollution. We have all the food available to us. We're very much a sporting nation. Everybody seems to participate in some sort of sport in this country, no matter what age. So generally speaking, we've been lucky. But longevity is not about relying on luck. Longevity is about sort of having a program or having a strategy, probably a better way of talking about it. If I could just zero in. I know you cover all the various parts of the strategy. That is, right from sleep through to nutrition, through to exercise, etc. Because I do listen to your Perform podcast, and I have listened to you on, and also talking to Andrew Huberman. I've also listened to you speaking to, I think, Peter Attia as well. But I've heard you speak to lots of different people over a large number of years, and I know you have your own podcast now called Perform. But can I just dial down for a second just on exercise? So would you be able to explain why exercise is so important in the whole longevity game? And now when I say longevity, I'm talking about living to our optimized length of period at our optimizing our general health during that period. That's what I mean by longevity, optimization.
Sure.
What?
When you think, go ahead.
No, I know. Where's exercise fit into that? How does it enhance it and make it better?
Yeah. So when you want to think about longevity, and I appreciate you acknowledging the fact that people use different terms. And so you qualified what you mean by it. Most of us are going to say something like this. There's going to be your lifespan. How many years you're going to live? Okay, great. And then some amount of years within that, we'll call that your wellness span. Again, different phrases here, but just, you live and you live well. We all want to live for a long time, but mostly we want to live as well as we can for whatever years that we have. Okay, great. Well, just below that is something we call the strength span. So your strength span is going to determine your wellness span, and it will determine your lifespan in large part, but it has a really strong tie to your wellness span. Here's what I mean. As soon as you get below a certain level of physical strength, you can no longer presume activities of daily living. You can't shower. You can't clean up for yourself. You can't be confident to walk across the street. And because of that, your physical activity plummets. You don't walk, you don't do much, you sit more, you don't stand as much, you don't engage in social activities. You don't go to that party in the park for your grandchild's birthday party because, it's too far from the road and you hate that thing and it's way over there. And it's rainy outside and you're concerned about you're going to slip down. So you see this huge withdrawal from social activity. That then causes psychological concerns because you have less a sense of purpose. You have a larger sense of burden, and you're not engaging in the upcoming and new world. You start withdrawing, and then things start changing around you really fast, and it gets way too out of control at such an alarming rate. And so you just kind of stop wherever you're at and live in that exact spot for as many years as you can, which is really, really hard thing to do. So your strength, specifically in your legs, will determine your interface with the world. It is the way you locomote. It is the way you get around. If your legs become just slightly below a particular threshold, not only will we have a whole consequence of physiological problems, but then we have all those other things I just laid out. Again, lack of physical activity, which leads to lack of a social engagement, lack of sense of purpose, so on and so forth. Those things, if you look at all the research, are the largest determinants of all-cause mortality. And so there's another way to say that is, if I were to put you through every single test in the world, let's say you're one of our health optimizer clients that we have. You're worth billions of dollars, and I work with plenty of these people. There's not a single test you could pay for that will tell you more about your likelihood of surviving than something like a leg strength test or a VO2 max test. There's no blood test. There's nothing else in the world that will outpredict physical performance for longevity and all-cause mortality. So that alone should tell you, hey, it's not the only thing that matters. And I don't need you to be a world champion or be some crazy exerciser training 6 hours a day or even 2 hours a day every day. None of those things are what I'm saying. What we're mostly saying is Don't be in the bottom 20th percentile. Don't be the lowest fit person you know. Don't be the weakest person you know. Don't have the worst sleep that you know. Don't have the most joint pain or back issues. If you have those things, your chances of dying relative to the person next to you are somewhere between double to 4 to 5 times as high, depending on the metric we're looking at, the study design, your age, and like all those factors, right? It is a marked increase in all-cause mortality risk. If you look at things like your VO2 max, this is your cardiovascular endurance, your aerobic capacity, right? This is the higher heart rate type of stuff. You'll see similar numbers there that you saw with leg strength and for physical grip strength, right? Your forearm and hand strength. You'll start seeing things like 20, 30, 40, 50% increases in risk of dying when you have moderate to low cardiovascular fitness. If you compare that to something like smoking, you're probably double or triple the risk with low fitness than you are with cigarette smoking.
Wow.
And cigarette smoking is awful for you, right?
Wow.
You could stack them up. You could stack blood pressure. You could stack cholesterol levels. You could stack smoking. You could stack renal disease. And if you look at those things predicted to low physical fitness will not only outpredict them, it's typically 2 to 3-fold, if not higher, the predictive power than any of those other markers. So this is why when people like us are harping on it, there's a lot of reasons to think that. It is by far, and not a small amount, it is orders of magnitude sometimes more important than any of those traditional clinical risk factors or measures.
So if somebody comes into your studio, your clinic, or your surgeries, or whatever you run, particularly out there in Texas, what do you do to work out? Let's say someone from 60 to 70 in that age. Just pick an age group, one cohort. What is a leg strength test? What the hell is that? Like, what are you trying to do? See if I can do a deadlift? What are you trying to work out?
There's no one particular test you can or can't do. What you want to do is look for global ideas. Again, I'm not trying to make sure you're the 80th percentile or 85th percentile. What I mean by that is if you're in a room of 100 people your age, I don't need to make sure that you're the top 10 strongest girl in the room. I don't care about that, right? I want to look and make sure you're not the bottom 10.
Right.
That's really what we're after. And I say that to say, so the specifics of the test don't matter that much because we're not trying to differentiate the 99th place versus the 92nd place. I'm trying to differentiate horrific versus, okay, you're fine. So this could be a leg press. Find a leg press machine. It could be a leg extension machine. If you want to do a front squat, great. You want to do a barbell squat? Awesome. I don't really care because we have normative values on all those things. So do whatever test you feel comfortable with. Do it well, get a good quality number, and then just Google search what's a normal score for my age, my sex, based on this exact thing, and you'll get in the ballpark. And if you think you're like kind of low-ish, then you need to make some serious changes. If you're really, really high, then you're okay. Keep doing what you're doing. Anywhere in between, then we probably want to make progress.
So it seems like you're saying, Andy, that from the get-go, it's not about am I included in the top 5%, but what you're trying to do is exclude me from the bottom 25%. It's more exclusionary. We don't want you to be in this particular position. We don't want you to be in the bottom 25%. And as you just said, I think you mentioned that, say, someone from 60 to 70, you can probably ask Copilot or one of those sorts of
Sure.
chat GPTs or whatever. Say, where do I rank with this level of strength for my age and, say, weight for doing a leg press of 100 pounds? Does that rank me? Where does that rank me? And if it says it ranks you above 50%, then that's pretty okay. That's not a bad start point. That's what you're saying.
Yeah, pretty close. I mean, I personally am going to be a little more greedy than that, but yeah.
Yeah, me too. I'm going to be one of the. I want to be in the top 1%, yeah. But I get it. But because and that's important though, because not everybody's competitive, and we don't want everybody to walk around thinking, oh my God, I'm not in the top 1%, therefore I'm stuffed, and it's all in the downward. So in terms of grip strength, I guess it's the same process, and you mentioned leg press, grip strength, and VO2 max. And grip strength's a pretty obvious one, like how strong my grip is. And I'm going to come back to you and ask you about exercises for these things to enhance those positions. But VO2 max, you just sort of slipped off your tongue like it's like something normal for you. Most people don't know what VO2 max is. and let alone how to measure it. I have a Whoop, and my Whoop actually is now these days is actually doing some algorithmic calculation as to what my VO2 max was. I've done a VO2 max test recently, and interestingly enough, my Whoop was very, 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 very close to the calculation. It was quite accurate, relatively speaking. That's in my case. What is VO2 max though? Like, tell us what we're talking about here.
Yeah, VO2 max stands for, the V stands for volume, the O2 stands for oxygen, and max is max. So it's the maximum volume of oxygen you can bring in. That is a nice way of saying it is your maximal ability to bring in and utilize oxygen for fuel. It doesn't matter that it's oxygen. What it means, even simpler than that, is how much air can you bring in and use, and how much work can you do at a very high heart rate. That's all we're talking about. It is a direct test of maximum cardiovascular function. So it is a direct test of your maximum heart's capacity, a direct test of your maximal lung capacity, a direct test of your ability to get things in the blood and move them into exercising muscle and get waste products out of muscle and back into the blood so you can transport them out the lung. And so it has what's called a central and peripheral component. So that central component is the heart and the lung, the pulmonary system. And then the peripheral component is, okay, how many capillaries do you have? How good are they? Can you get blood into muscle? Can muscle perform its job? Do you have a lot of mitochondria? Is it healthy muscle? Is it high quality muscle? How do those things function? Can it handle hard work? Can it recover? And then can you get that waste out? And so it's not that it is anything magical about the number per se, but it is a really good, as you just heard, it's an overview of a ton of systems in your body. And if you have huge limitations in your diaphragm or your breathing muscles or anywhere else, you can't perform poorly. And so many things have to go correct to get a high VO2 max score. The inverse is true. If your number is poor, we know we have some huge limitation in an area that's really big. Lungs, you can't breathe, living is hard. Heart, if you can't circulate oxygen and blood, living is hard. Muscle, if you get the idea here, right? Like, do you have a hole in one of these big, huge areas? Something is physically wrong or super suboptimal, and something will then catch you. You're going to get caught by something which will then lead to either death or reduced functional capacity. So that is the textbook definition, but then more importantly, that's how you should sort of think about what it is and why it actually matters. The number itself, the VO2 max score, again, it is just a number, but what it represents is how healthy are you from a global physiological perspective. And so you can calculate this a ton of ways. You can go to a lab and usually pay $100 or something like that and get a test done. Test, typically takes 15, 20 minutes, 30 minutes, something like that. You can calculate it by yourself on a track. You can run what here in the States would be a mile and a half. I'm not sure how many kilometers that is, but you can run any number of what are called prediction equations. And so again, you could chat GPT this or something and say like, hey, give me a prediction equation test to run. The easy one is the mile and a half run. So you run a mile and a half, you time it, you take that number, you plug it into a calculator, and that predicts your VO2 max. My friend, Dr. Greg Grzycki, actually, we just worked on that for Whoop. He's over at Whoop. So he just built that program, and he's very, 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 very sharp. So I'm not surprised to hear you that it worked there. Tons of wearables offer these things. There are versions that you can do on bicycles. You can do versions on a rowing machine. So if you're like, oh, I can't run, my knees are all hurt. Okay, great. That you can do it in the swimming pool. There's been hundreds of validation studies and tons of equations. It's one of the oldest metrics in all of exercise physiology. So there's tons of ways you can do it. And lastly, there are submaximal estimates. So if you're scared to go to a true max effort or can't or something like that, there is even a classic 2-minute step test. It literally takes you 2 minutes. You take your heart rate, and if you have a heart rate monitor or watch or something, then you step onto a box like a 12-inch box or so, like a pretty small 18 one. I can't remember the exact one. And you step up and down for 2 minutes, and then you check your heart rate at the end. You plug those numbers into an equation, and then it will estimate your VO2 max on top of that. All of these have been scientifically validated for a long time. They may not be perfectly accurate, but again, they're going to be 90+% accurate. And for most people just trying to see, are you in that bottom chunk or that top chunk or in the middle? It's going to be close enough. And so I hope that gives everybody out there listening options. If you want to know your VO2 max, you can do it a ton of different ways, or you can just go straight into the laboratory and get it tested. And so it's not hard to test. The number is incredibly valuable, and the metric itself is one of the strongest predictors of your overall mortality risk and likelihood of dying for any reason, including for cancer and dementia. It gets associated with just everything. So, a good number to have in your back pocket, and something you should probably test at least once a year.
So I've heard Peter Attia say it is by far the most important marker in terms of all-cause mortality is your VO2 max. And let's say someone is 50 and over. Why does someone at 50 years of age have a lower VO2 max? What happens to us than to say someone at 20 years of age? Well, what's the reason for that?
Yeah, so you start to see VO2 max decline right around age 40 or so. And you'll see that it tends to drop more precipitously somewhere between 45 and 55 years old for men. And it's a slightly different window for women, but it's pretty much the same thing. After that, there's this kind of like accelerated chunk. After that, the rate of decline seems to be really, really steady. Now, that said, there is ample research showing that as long as you stay physically active, the rate of decline of your VO2 max slows down tremendously, if not stopped entirely. We actually did a study many years ago where we looked at world champions in cross country skiing who were Olympic gold medalists and things like that in the 1940s and 50s. And then we actually studied them in 2005, 2010 ish window. So they were world champions 50, 60 years prior to us, and they were still competing. And we looked at them, and their VO2 max was much lower than what it was when they were 25 and winning world championships, but it was over double the same people that were the same age as them. And so it does start to decline. That is a thing that can happen with aging, but you have way more influence on it than you think. The general numbers will kick around is VO2 max is 50% genetic and 50% lifestyle. And within lifestyle, it's almost exclusively, body weight and physical capacity. But that said, I'll go to my grave saying it's much higher than 50% because the trainability of it is extraordinarily high. If that number is low, there's a good chance it's your fault, right? If it's really, really high, then genetics, were oftentimes a part of that. But you have the ability to go anywhere between that spectrum based on what you're doing. So why it physically drops, a whole bunch of things associated with capillarization, cardiovascular capacity. One thing that is really difficult as you start to age, most people don't really realize this, but so your maximum heart rate, the rough number we'll say to calculate it is 220 minus your age,
Yep.
right? So if you're 60 years old, you're 220 minus 60, your predicted maximum heart rate, the highest they could possibly ever get to, would be 160 in that case, right? So 160 plus 60 would be your 220. That's just a rough number, right? It's wildly off for tons of people. Like it's like off by 25 beats for me. It's not even close for me, right? But in that equation alone, it's telling you as you get older, then your maximum heart rate starts to come down. And so what happens is your heart rate can only beat so fast because it has to have enough time in between beats to refill with blood, right? If it's beating so fast, and you can just imagine it's beating so fast, it's almost just contracted and squeezed the whole time. Well, when it's not squeezing and contracting, that's when blood goes back into the heart. And so blood comes in, it contracts and squeezes it all out. Heart opens up, more blood comes in, and it just keeps the cycle. Well, if it's squeezing super, super fast, there's not enough time to refill. And so your body will stop how fast it will go in order to give you filling time. Well, that ability to refill slows down as we age. So because that maximum heart rate comes down, your VO2 max will come down as well. And that happens for a whole bunch of molecular and vascular reasons. But that's one example of it. Capillaries diminish over time. Mitochondrial health diminishes over time. Physical work output, particularly in your lower body, diminishes over time. So all of these things combined will suggest that like it will start pulling it down eventually. but it doesn't have to come down nearly as fast as people think it does.
Just on that, if I know you're not a cardiologist, but I would like to get a sort of a view, if you don't mind. You just mentioned, the 220 minus 60, for example. On that example, that's your maximum heart rate's 160. Now, let's say in my case, let's assume I'm 60, and that my maximum heart rate, for the sake of this question, is 160. But I go and do a workout, and my heart rate goes to 175. Am I at risk? Is that
No,
something I should be worried about?
now, unless you're, again, talk to your cardiologist, don't sue me. I'm not an
No,
MD. Uh,
exactly.
but no, there's no reason. In fact, I can tell you, having put a bunch of people through VO2 max tests with cardiologists in the room, the ones that don't understand a lot about exercise, they start to freak out. We actually had this happen. We were testing subjects one time, and these were 80 and 90-year-olds, right? And so you do some basic math there. You're talking about maximum heart rates like 130, 140, right? Theoretically. And so these guys are exercising and they're barely moving because they're pretty fit. And they're at 100, 110, 115, 120. And the cardiologists, bless their little hearts, they're just so used to people stopping at 120, right? And just like getting off, and these guys were just like cruising along, and they start shutting the machine down. And the guys were like, what are you doing? My rate of perceived exertion is a 5 out of 10 right now. They're not even sweating yet. And these cardiologists were like, and so we're like, dude, like, get out of here. You don't know what you're doing at all. And these guys are going, and they start getting to 120, 125, 130. And now they're like starting to breathe a little bit, but they're like, relative exertion, 6 out of 10, 6.5 out of 10, something like that. And the cardiologists are like, not freaking out because they're going to have a heart attack, but just like, I've never seen numbers like this. Well, this group ended up with a maximum heart rate of about 145 as a group average, which means some
Yep.
of them are 155, 160 as 90-year-olds. But the cardiologists have just never seen anything like that. And so it's not their fault, but you're not at any particular risk. Your maximum heart rate is not associated with better fitness or worse fitness. Your maximum heart rate is not associated with risk in any way or form. And so, yeah, I wouldn't worry about it at all. If you have any thoughts of risk, of course, work with your cardiologist, blah, blah, blah. But no, there's no reason to think that number is high, particularly because depending on how you're testing it might be just a function of your wearable sucks. It's not very accurate, but we'll just skip that point. In
so,
general, there's no reason to think a higher heart rate is excessively dangerous for most people outside of medical conditions.
so it makes a lot of sense to me, what you've said in relation to VO2 max. Like, it's sort of like, it's just a measurement of your total system. It also makes sense to me about why you need leg strength, because in terms of getting yourself around, and you need a certain level of leg strength. Can you explain to me the grip strength part? I mean, why is it important
Yeah.
that, do I need to be able to pick up a hammer or something? Or what? I don't need to be doing chin-ups, or I don't need to be doing farmer's carries if I'm 70, for example. I do it, but I'm just saying I don't need to. What's the reason? Where's grip strength coming to? Why is that so important?
Yes. So indirectly, you do need to be doing firearms carries at 70. This is your luggage. This is your groceries. This is anything else. You have to be able to move things around the world. You're not going to go very far if you can't carry things with you. And it's sort of funny to think that, but I hear people say this stuff all the time. I'm like, do you carry groceries? You're like,
Yeah.
oh, like, do you carry a backpack through an airport? You ever put overhead luggage in a bin or on a bus? Yeah, you farmers carry all the time, right? You push your wheelbarrow around your yard while you're gardening, like you're doing farmers carry. So number one, as I said earlier, your legs are what control locomotion, but your hands are literally your interface to the world. It is getting the jar open. It is getting that thing tightened down on your chair, not having to call and spend $200 on a repair guy to come out because you can't tighten something. So it starts to affect a ton. I mean, honestly, pay attention tomorrow. Spend the next 24 hours. Just pay attention to how many times you've used your hands besides typing on something. I guarantee you something will pop up the next 7 days. You're like, oh man, I didn't think about that. I didn't think about that. But I bet you if you're 75 and your grip is weak as hell, you will think about it. And it becomes very, very, very annoying and life becomes limiting. But past that, there's a lot of research showing direct connections between the neural circuitry in your hands and the neural circuitry associated with things like dementia, with Parkinson's onset, with word recall, with memory, attention span, and so forth. And so one of the things that we start to see is if you have more than 10% asymmetry between your dominant hand and your non-dominant hand, especially if that asymmetry hasn't been caused by vocation. So if you are a carpenter or you're in a job where you specifically kind of do one thing with one hand, then you'll develop some greater asymmetry. We see this in like our athletes, our pitchers and stuff. We say, okay, great. Like you're throwing a ball with one hand, that's going to happen. But if you don't induce some sort of natural asymmetry there, and yours becomes greater than 10%, that starts to be associated with nerve denervation, starts to be associated with a whole cascade of downward spiraling of your physical health that you don't want to have any part of. And so your grip strength has both direct and indirect mechanisms that are explaining overall health. And so we need to make sure again that not that I'm concerned that you can tear phone books apart with your hands or anything, or that you can not figure out how to use pliers and you have to open up every jar by your hands. Okay, great. I know it. There's tools, but it's that minimum threshold of falling below and being able to survive and function by yourself. Another way to think about this is it might not be limiting you now. It might not. But do you really want to be in the spot where you can't live by yourself because you can't open anything up? You can't take care of anything? So what you've done in that particular case is you literally let grip strength end your wellness span. That's what it was. And he's like, what a dumb way to not be able to live by yourself, right? Like what a completely controllable and stupid reason to not have autonomy in life is because you just let your hands get weak. So if you're going to let something like that will happen eventually, right? You're going to have assisted living at some point in your life. Don't let it be you got weak hands. That's so insanely controllable. Let it be the fact that your body just deteriorated finally and you're 110 years old. This is at the age of limitation of science, but don't let it be something like, well, I couldn't hold things anymore. I couldn't lift the couch up and rearrange it. That's the control got underneath the couch and because I dropped it and I can't lift it up anymore. Like, don't let that be the reason why you couldn't live the life you want to live. This doesn't make any sense to do that.
So, and I think what you're sort of saying is that it's quite an important question that most of us never have an opportunity to ask ourselves or don't understand that we should ask ourselves. So in relation to the first and last point, that is leg strength and grip strength, let's put VO2 max aside just for a second. But those two, really what most of us should be asking ourselves as we get older, we should be saying to ourselves, in my case, Mark, what functions do you want to be able to perform when you're 90? That should inform me as to what exercises I need to do now so that I can build and maintain strength either in my legs or my hands to perform those functions. So the functions are not so that I used to be a boxer, so the functions are not so that I can do 10 rounds with, a master's fighter my age. It's not about that. It's about, can I lift my grandkid up who might be 10 kilos? Or can I pick up my cat who might be whatever? Or as you say, can I open a jar? Can I carry 2 suitcases because the elevator or escalator is not working at the airport and I need to get up the stairs when I arrive in LA for my next annual holiday because I like to go to Vegas and have a gamble, etc. So we need to ask ourselves those questions about what functions we want to achieve. That will therefore inform us as to what exercises, which I'm going to ask you about, what exercises we need to start doing now and how often and how much weight, et cetera, and in order to do that, we probably should also get a bit of a measure as to where we are today. So, Mark, where are you in terms of leg strength today relative to the population, your age group or any other age group that you choose below you? Mark, where are you in relation to your group strength relative to the population in relation to your age group or any other age group you choose to compare yourself to, particularly a younger age group if you're that way inclined, which I am, competitive. So is that a fair thing to say that we are not asking ourselves the right question when we go to the gym? Because I see dudes at the gym, mates of mine, friends, they're still doing the same shit but we're all doing 40 years ago. And they're doing a bench press, and they can still lift 120 kilos, or 260 pound, or whatever is in your thing, and which is okay. It's nothing wrong with that, by the way. But then if you ask them to do a farmer's carry, they can't do it. So is it correct that we're not asking ourselves the right question when we inform ourselves as to how we should train and what we should train?
Yeah, you have to be a little bit careful here. I'm a weightlifting junkie, of course. And so if you tell me like your pal's bench pressing 120 kilos, I'm like, hell yeah. Like it's awesome, right? Like
Yeah, same.
great. If you ask me to convert distance, I don't know, but you want to convert stuff in the weight room, I actually prefer kilos. So that's I'm all over those numbers. You want to be a little bit careful here, only because something like a leg extension or leg press or grip strength, don't get too caught up in those numbers. You want to just think of them like we thought of VO2 max, as it represents a bunch of physiological systems, which is that's the take home message, right? The same thing with grip strength. Grip strength is good, but it's really kind of the reason grip strength is used in research a lot is because a grip strength testing device is like $25. It doesn't take any learning curve. There's no technique issues. Everybody can do it. You can try it 2 or 3 times. I can get it done in my study. I can do it in my hospital. I can do it in my clinic in 2 minutes. And so, because of that, we have a lot of research on it. We don't have a lot of research on it, though, because it is some magical, super special exercise that everybody has to do. And so, we want to be careful of saying, well, okay, therefore, if we know VO2 max, leg strength, and grip strength are these three massive predictors, then I'm going to train to optimize performance on those tests. That is losing the plot entirely. We should be looking at this as saying we know physical fitness is incredibly important, therefore maximize physical fitness. Don't get swallowed up in the test. And I'm saying that to say, if somebody's in the gym and they're making a lot of progress and they're doing bent rows and they're doing all kinds of other exercises and then they come in and they don't do anything specific for their grip, I'm not super concerned. They're probably fine. Like, we're probably just fine. Now, if they were to do grip strength test and it's terrible, then maybe we have an issue. But that's probably not going to happen because so many things you're going to do in the weight room are going to be grip dependent anyways, that you're going to build some grip strength there. And so we don't want to overly prepare for the test, right? That's kind of like the equivalent of your child's teacher sends them home with the exact math test, and then they come home the next day or they go to school the next day and they get 100%. They're not any better at math. They just practice the test, right? In this case, you want to be better at math. You want to solve global math problems. And what I'm referring to now is you want to be able to solve global movement problems. I want you to be able to step up stairs and not be out of breath and not have to take a stop and go, hold on, because you took 4 steps on the stairs. I want you to be able to carry a suitcase. I want you to be able to slip and catch yourself in an awkward position. I want you to be able to pick something up off the ground, not herniate a disc. That's what I actually want. Now, scientifically, I need to simplify that so I can organize it, so I can standardize it, so I can execute the research. But what we see in the research is a simplified version of trying to say, hey, this is why it's globally important to be physically active. And so I need you to have good mobility. I need you to have good range of motion. I need you to move well. I need you to be able to move from your right foot to your left shoulder. I need you to not be in pain. That's what I really need. But I can't put all that in a study. That's like too many variables, right? And so, yes, if all we're doing is going to the gym and doing biceps and bench press, we're probably not aging very well. First of all, we're gonna have joint pain probably, and hurt shoulders and surgeries, and we're missing out on the bigger thing. But at the same time, I don't want you to only go to the gym and only do the exercises that have been shown to predict mortality. That's not the good approach either. So that was a really good question. You teed me up very well for that. But I hope people understand that. Remember, let's not forget the plot here of what we're trying to get done.
But it is confusing, Andy, because for most of us mere mortals, as to how we should exercise, and or probably more importantly, what we should exercise, what muscle groups we should exercise, how often we should exercise. Should we be doing 3 5s, 5 sets of 3 to 5 sets of 3 to 5 reps of a weight that we can only lift 3 to 5 times, or should we be doing 12 reps because we're trying to build muscle, because we should have a certain level of muscle mass in any event going as we get older. And it's very confusing. And recently I listened to, and I got even more confused, and it wasn't you I listened to, but I recently I listened to a podcast with Andrew Huberman, where he spoke to someone called Pavel Tatsulin. He's a Russian guy. Yeah, Pavel. And my God, I was so confused at the end of it because I thought, my God, I think I've been trained the wrong way the whole time. So, and he was sort of basically saying machines aren't the best thing to do. You're better off using free weights. And he was sort of saying, if you can do dips, chins, bench, it's sort of what do you call that? It's compound exercises. The compound exercises. That's probably enough. I've been going to a gym. I go to a gym. I do weights, let's say twice a week. And I go to the gym. This gym's got like every machine known to man. And all of a sudden I've realized probably don't need to use. I thought to myself, I don't need to use all these machines. And I'm now getting confused. And I've been exercising for a long, 50 years, more, 55 years. With all various sorts of coaches, world champion boxing coaches teach me, world champion jiu-jitsu, I do jiu-jitsu, coaching me. They've all got different views on how you should exercise. Where do I start, man? Like, I'm over 50. Yeah. What should I be? What's something simple I should be looking at just to kick it off?
Okay. I think the easy way to say this is a couple of ways. Number one, there's a reason there are entire academic and scientific fields on these topics. Exercise science. Like there's a lot. And I used to tell this to my students at the very beginning of the semester. If you think that you can become a world-renowned expert in exercise in a semester, you're out of your mind, right? So the average consumer who's not even in a graduate program of that, it is insanely complicated. So when you hear someone like Pavel, who's got decades of experience, he's not wrong, right? But then when you hear maybe I say something different, you're like, oh my God, these guys disagree. No, it's just there's a lot of things to talk about in this field, and it is really complicated, right? It's kind of like if you're trying to explain to everyone on a podcast finance. It's like, well, sure, I could do this easy way, like save more money than you spend. But then, like past that, my God, there's just academic fields of this stuff, right? So first and foremost, there's that piece. The second piece, someone like Pavel, again, who I've known for a long time now, he has a particular way of looking at it. He's probably most known for kettlebells and being such a huge advocate of that. And he generally has a particular type of outcome and an assumed goal and a clientele that he works with, right? I'm different. And so my perspective, my view of this field is different because I work directly with people. And so in a conversation, for example, I might write a training program this morning, as I did, for a Major League Baseball pitcher coming back off of a major elbow surgery, and then finish that and immediately write a training program for one of our billionaire entrepreneurs who's 60. And he's going to give me 20 minutes a day to train, right? These are entirely different goals. So their programs don't even come close to looking the same. You would be in the same position, Mark. You'd see me like, if I walked you through the first one, you'd be like, I got it. And then I walk you through the second one, you'd be like, I'm so confused now. That's none of the stuff that you said before. Well, of course, right? You're talking about 40-year difference in age. You're talking about goals and limitations and blah, blah, blah. So when you hear different like experts talk about that stuff, that's why, right? Because there are a ton of ways to go about it. Let's go all the way on the bottom then. There's only a few concepts that would be true across my program, against Pavel's programs, against anybody else's programs. If you hit those concepts, you're going to be fine. If you want to go past that, if you're the person who likes to learn this stuff, then listen to a podcast in detail. Buy a book, go to a seminar, try to write your own programs. Great. If you don't want that stuff, buy a pre-made training program from somebody. Most people sell 12-week training programs. I think ours on my website are like $30 or something.
So you guys sell a training program?
Oh yeah, we have tons of them that are up, that are available that people can go buy. I think they're like $30 or something, like pretty cheap, 12 weeks. Usually we got all kinds. We have longevity programs. We have over 50. We have female programs. We have all kinds of them.
And is that the Vitality Blueprint website, or where is that?
No, that is on Biomolecular Athlete.
Biomolecularathlete.com. That's your another business of yours.
Yeah, I got a lot of companies. So that's our education company. So all of our education courses, all of our Like we have short little courses, like a couple of hours. We've got long ones, like like my college courses are on there. And then we have just like straight up training programs and things like that people can go buy. And we could give you the links. You can link to some of
Yeah, no,
those.
I definitely check. No, I actually tried to consult with you guys, but apparently you have to be living in Texas or something, or America at least, to be able to do a consultation with you guys. I was actually going to fly over and
Oh, we can
come
get
over
that
and do it.
organized.
Yeah, come
Yeah, that's
over
not
and
a problem.
get a consultation. Get my bloods done. Just put me
Yeah.
through a test, and then just see what comes from it. I'd love to do that. That'd be awesome.
Oh yeah. Yeah. We can. We'll talk about that offline. But yeah,
Yeah,
we
no,
get that done.
totally. But
We've worked with lots of people like you. Let me
so
finish a couple pieces of
yeah,
advice.
please, yes, please.
Another thing you guys can try for free. I wrote the training program for a guy whose sole goal is longevity. His name is Brian Johnson.
Yeah,
Right.
no,
So
I don't know him. I know of him. Yeah.
yeah. Okay. He put that whole thing out there for free. So you can go on and see the training program I built for Brian Johnson, and it's still the one. Like he's been using it for I don't know 7, 8 months, something like that. Now we did a whole podcast of it. The whole video is free, and I think he put the whole thing up there and out there, so you can go and just do the. You want to know the Andy Galpin longevity program? It's not for everyone, right? Again, please remember, I built that specifically for Brian himself. I know Brian. I worked with him. I had data on him. I was in person. That program is a beast. The vast majority of you will not be able to handle that program, and you should not try. The other longevity program we have at Biomolecular Athlete is much more realistic for most people. But if you want to go see that, that's totally free. Brian put it up there. I said, "Yeah, man, go ahead, like fire it out there. It's your program. Do whatever you want with it." So that gives people options of like the go-getters that want to go and learn more, the people that don't and just want to like check into a program, those that can afford 30 or 40 bucks or whatever, and then if you maybe can't afford that, then there's the free program that you can go check out for Brian. So hopefully that gives people a lot of options.
So let's just pick one aspect of it, because I have seen some of the stuff he does. Um,
Mhm.
um, let's just talk about lower body. Are you talking? I mean, is someone over? I'm talking about 50 and over. Is someone over 50 and over subject, assuming they've got no massive injuries, etc.?
Mhm.
Should they be doing things like a deadlift at a weight that they can handle, or do they not worry about deadlifts?
Oh, you can do it. Yeah, absolutely. There's no special exercise you have to do.
Right.
If you're into deadlifting, I'm here for it. If you hate it, great. Um, Brian doesn't deadlift, really. Doesn't do like a traditional bar deadlift. His threshold, his tolerance for risk are very low. He doesn't want anything that is going to potentially, not like the deadlift would, but that was off his list. It's off his list. No big deal. We have other people that are older than Brian, just as healthy, and they deadlift. So great. If you hate it, if you've never done it before, you want to tinker with it, like always. Start super conservative. I mean, by conservative, give yourself months to build up. You should be deadlifting for several months before you even feel like it's hard. Like, really give that tissue a chance to adapt. Train hard on other stuff, but anytime you introduce a new exercise, especially if you're 50 plus years old or whatever number, 55 or 60, whatever, or you don't have a huge weightlifting background, strength training background, anytime you introduce something new, really give it a long time to marinate there. Don't make that the exercise that you push hard on. Push hard on the stuff you're more familiar with. And then slowly, and I'm slowly over months, let that thing build up. That's how you make sure you don't wake up one day and all of a sudden that shoulder is killing you, that back is now killing you, that knee, or whatever the case is. Really be thoughtful. You want to introduce new exercises and new movements somewhat frequently, right? We're not trying to be specific and world champions at a particular exercise. We're just using exercise as a way to be healthier, right? So we want new movements, but we don't want to go overly crazy. Generally, that means something like every 6 to 8 weeks. It's a pretty good rhythm for most people. Shorter than that, you don't give yourself enough time to make a lot of adaptations oftentimes. And then you also spend all your time in the gym, like looking at your coaching app and looking at the thing and like trying to figure it out. And, it's just not good. So a good rhythm for most people is somewhere in the 6 to 8 to 10 weeks. Doesn't mean you throw every exercise out, right? But you can start peppering in some new ones and start peppering in some new ones after that. So some people like to change a lot of exercises out. Some people only change a couple every day. That's fine, but that's a really good way to think about it. So deadlift, you tell me. You're like, yeah, I used to do it all the time. I hurt my back. Do you want to do it again? No. Okay. I'll never bring it up again. You want to try it? I'm good for it too. You don't have to be scared of it either.
But the posterior chain, like as they call it, if you didn't do deadlifts, or how important is that sort of that chain that sort of goes down the back of
Yeah.
your body? How important is that? Which is why I mentioned deadlift. How important
Yep.
is that to you in terms of just functionality generally? Like it might be picking up your grandkid, for example.
Yeah.
And if you don't do a deadlift, what do you do?
Look, here's the reality. Every muscle and group of muscles in your body is important.
Yeah,
Every one of them. It just tends to be people are more likely to do the ones that are on the front side that they can see in the mirror.
yeah,
But it's not like your lats and your back and your glutes are more important than your quads. They aren't. They just tend to be underserved. They tend to be undertrained. And so we like to, as you were pointing out earlier, as you already sort of like leading me into there, we tend to emphasize that posterior chain, the stuff behind you, stuff you can't see in the mirror. And again, not because it's actually more important, but it just tends to be less worked, less trained, and then it becomes underdeveloped. And then the front side tends to be overdeveloped, which then causes problems and injuries and things like that. So we want to make sure that everything is getting trained. This is you. If you're going to have limited capacity, that means something is weak, and it means you let something get weak. So don't let it get weak. You want to pick deadlift again, great. If you hate it and you want to do a different back exercise, a different glute exercise, hamstrings, whatever you want to do, but you want to develop everything.
So you mentioned something about you used the word adaptation, and I've heard many of the experts talk about adaptation. But I think it'd be good if you could explain what you mean by adaptation, and particularly in relation to perhaps our neural system, or our nervous system, how our nervous system gets incorporated in the adaptation, or it adapts as well, not just the muscle, but everything
Right.
else that goes with it.
Yeah. So when you make human movement, there's three global components. The very first is nervous system. So some signal got sent from your central nervous system, which is your brain, brainstem, spinal cord, and it went to your peripheral nervous system. Your peripheral nervous system are the nerves that actually outreach onto your arms and legs and fingers and toes and things like that. So nervous system number one has to send a signal. The nervous system then tells muscle to contract, to do something, right? System number two is the muscle. And then number three, all of your muscle is wrapped around with a bunch of connective tissue. That connective tissue comes together and eventually forms a tendon. That tendon inserts on the bone. So when you contract the muscle, it pulls the connective tissue. That pulls the tendon, that pulls the bone, that moves you. And so the third component being the connective tissue. When we start talking about adaptation, what we're meaning is some change. Hopefully, it's some positive change here. This could be you grew muscle size. This could be your connective tissue got more efficient. It got healthier. It was better at transmitting force. This could be physical strength. This could be muscular endurance. It could be more mitochondria. It could be more capillaries and better blood flow, more nutrients in, more nutrients in, more nutrients out. Any of those things would represent an adaptation. If you're thinking about this outside of muscles perspective, then now you're talking about nervous system. So the nervous system got more organized. This is motor control. This is motor learning. This is neuroplasticity. There could be changes to your endocrine health, your hormone health, your metabolism, your immune system. All of these things could be viewed as adaptation. And so all of those things do happen with exercise and many, 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 many more, by the way. And so if there's a particular adaptation that you're looking for, then we go target that, right? But if you're just saying like my adaptation I'm looking for is health, then we want all of those things to happen. And that's why we want a little more general goals. We want a little more general program. The more specific your goals, the more specific your program, the more specific the adaptations are. But the more specific the adaptations are, generally, the more limited they are in scope. And so, someone like one of our professional athletes, we tend to get extremely specific with their training and their nutrition and their supplements and all that stuff because we have a very specific goal. We have a very specific date to do that on. And then we have other very specific scenarios. Where that differs for someone like Brian or our other executive clients, of which we have several in Australia, by the way, So I don't know who told you that we can't do it down there, but we can. We'll take care of you, especially if you come up. But those people tend to be more general. So when you say something like longevity, then we go, okay, great. Now we step back and we vision this thing differently because we don't have this date, this time, this wedding to get ready for, or whatever the case is, and we go after more broad goals. Um, there's still going to be like a top number one goal, but below that, we get into just making sure that every aspect of your physiology is being addressed so that everything gets improved along for the ride.
So when we talk about longevity, and I'm definitely going to take you up on all this, but when we talk about longevity, Andy, and when a lot of us here in Australia listen to, like, there's so many people you can listen to, both here in Australia and particularly in the US, and I'd urge our listeners to listen to you, but like as I do, but equally I listen to Peter Tur, etc. And sometimes I get a bit overwhelmed. I think to myself, my God, I don't have enough hours in the day to do zone 2, 150 minutes of zone 2. I don't have in a week. I don't have enough time to do 150 minutes of zone 2. Maybe one day of VO2 max. Let's call it Sunday, where I do 4 lots of 4 minutes. Then do 2 resistance days, maybe 3 resistance days, and on top of that, I like to do my martial arts. So I don't know what to give up. I might just, so on that basis, if I could just go and talk about a couple of those, because in the interest of time, just a couple of those. You and I know what zone 2 is, or I at least know what I think it is. You obviously have your view on it. But what is zone 2, and why is it so important all of a sudden?
I'm not a huge proponent of zone 2.
Okay, cool.
I'm not against it at all, but Peter is far stronger interest in this than I am. I don't think it's that important. We don't use zone 2 hardly ever, right? Now we'll do a lot of lower intensity exercise, but I don't. I'll respect Peter's a good friend. We do stuff together all the time, but I'm not nearly as concerned about this as many people are. You start here, okay? Number one, how physically active are you throughout the day? And I'm asking that to say, when you have somebody who's really physically active, they're getting 20,000 steps a day. They're in an active lifestyle or vocation, or they're an active person. They're standing desk. They're doing a treadmill desk. I don't need to do that much zone 2 with that person because you're getting a bunch of low level physical activity in, and that is going to do a lot of the same stuff that you get from, quote on zone 1, zone 2. Now, on top of that, if you want to then do some zone 2 specific stuff, which we do like, it can't dominate and overwhelm other things at certain phases. So the way that we will build for people is we will generally build the training program for a year, which means we have a different emphasis every quarter, generally. And so you're right, Mark. You can't do all that stuff and have a job and have a family and play golf and like you can't, right? And so what we do is we break it generally down by quarters. It's different for some people, but when we say something like this, hey, the summertime, we're going to focus on, say, body composition. We're going to take some fat off of you. Everyone wants to be outside and look good. And I want you in the sunlight more. We're going to do more of our exercise outside. Maybe we're doing some zone 2 because you don't mind it because you're going to be out in the sun for a couple of hours. Great. No big deal. We're going to smash that. But because of that, maybe we're going to take down some of your, we'll back off your strength training. So I want you doing zone 2 outside. You're going to go for long hikes and runs and swims and whatever. And then you can, we're also going to play your pickleball, and we're going to bring your lifting down to 35 minutes twice a week. We're not going to go weight. We're not going to not lift weights, but we're going to really tone it down. It's a maintenance thing. We're not expecting to grow muscle. We're not expecting to maximize any PRs in the weight room. But 3 months, once to twice per week, probably one set per exercise, maybe 4, 5, 6 exercises per workout, something like that. That is enough, and the research will be really clear. That will maintain strength and muscle in the vast majority of people, right? Especially for women, you do not want to go big chunks of time without lifting weights. Bone mineral density and other issues, they just take a long time, and you can't go big chunks with no stimuli on there. Then when it comes to the winter, we might flip the script. We might go, all right, enough of this stuff. We're going to go high intensity interval things, because there's not much sun. Now the sun is coming up and it's only out for 6 hours a day, and it's rainy and all those things. Like, no one wants to sit in a treadmill for 2 hours. Like, we're not going to do that, but we're going to get after it. We're going to lift. Our lifts are going to be 75 minutes, and you're going to lift 3 to 4 times per week. And then if it's nice outside, we might try to get, a couple of 45-minute walks in or something like that. Like, we just totally invert it. We're going to change your sport over from surfing and tennis, and we're going to start playing some more basketball inside. Or we're going to do we'll go to a spin class, and you can have some fun inside. It's that. So you get the point. It's trying to
Yeah.
match your lifestyle with your desires with realistic time domains. And if you do that, all of these physical attributes, bone health, immune health, endocrine health, body composition, you're going to still spend a lot of time on those throughout the year. And so everything will at minimum stay where it's at, and then you'll still be able to make progress. I mean, if you give me 3 solid months to work on muscle mass, and you're already pretty physically fit, and you're already lifting going into that, we can get a hell of a lot done in 3 months of really focusing on strength training. Same thing, the opposite. Minimal amount of strength training, minimal amount of zone two, but you really want to get after it in pickleball? Okay, let's go. You can be really, really darn healthy playing sports as 80% of your exercise, and then doing a little bit of structured, exercise outside of that. And so that's the way that we tend to think about it, is we look at it on bigger time domains and try to build things around that. We honestly even do it by the decade. So we might look at it and say, hey, Mark, like, we're not even going to try to get that strong this year. We got to clean up that shoulder. We got to get that ankle cleaned up. We really got to get your baseline fitness. And so this whole year, we're not going to forget about lifting weights. We're not going to go to zero, but our top priority is going to be joint health. And then our second priority is going to be, mitochondrial health and metabolic efficiency. And then if we can get anything on top of that, that's fine. But that's going to give us a great base. So next year when we come back, we can start doing the things that we want to do, and you're not going to break down, because you're in this to 100, right? Well, we got 40 years to think about this. And I'm not trying to maximize you for next month if I got 40 more years to be thinking about.
That's very interesting. Yeah, and if I could just be slightly selfish for a moment, let's say I said to you, Andy, I want to compete in 3 months' time in a jiu-jitsu competition. And you've trained lots of fighters. Would you say to me, Mark, you better start, apart from training, apart from practicing jiu-jitsu, would you say to me, Mark, there are sport-specific exercises that I would have you do in terms of strength relative to jiu-jitsu? In other words, if I get you in choke, I can put my bicep on you, and sort of choke you out pretty quickly. I mean, therefore maybe more bicep work. I mean, because I'm actually thinking about doing this. I'm not thinking, but I'm competing in 3 months. In a certain age group, but I'm just trying to work out whether I should just do general exercises, just keep maintaining my general gym work and my general practice work.
Yeah, great question. Number one, even if you're 60 or 6, if you got a competition,
older.
if you got a competition in 3 months, the first and most and almost all priority, and Jordy would tell you the same thing. In fight camp, which you're in fight camp, right? This is what you're in. Fight is number one. So if you want to get stronger in jiu-jitsu, you need to be doing more jiu-jitsu. That's what I would say. And anything we do in the weight room that's going to take away from your jiu-jitsu skill development, if you get somebody in a position and you can't quite finish the choke, more than likely it's because you're not good enough technically yet.
Yeah.
The technique would get you there, and trying to develop some physical strength behind that is putting emphasis on the wrong thing. So get in the right positions, execute technique more efficiently, and the more time you can spend on that defending and getting in jiu-jitsu shape. Your grip strength, when you start rolling hard, like if you aren't ready for it and you start doing jits for a little bit, your grip just blows to pieces, right? Your adductors and your groin feel like they're going to tear in half the first time you try to keep somebody in guard or triangle them. And that's the best thing you can do. So when you say specific, in this case, that close to a fight, specific needs to be the sport. Now, outside of that, what I would have you do is probably 10 minutes a day of some corrective exercise. Again, if you're really saying, hey, my grip strength is super, super weak. Okay, great. We might do 10 minutes a day of some grip strength. Or if there's a position Maybe your glutes are weak or something. We might do
Abductor.
yeah,
Abductor.
adductor.
Yeah.
There you go. We might do 10 minutes a day. That's kind of like, we call these like your vitamins. Take your vitamins every day, right? Let's just do this movement thing and get there. Then from there, I might do 1 day a week to 2 days a week of probably long walk, 20 to 30-minute walk, maybe a little bit higher intensity if you want, but really, like really low intensity, kind of a refresher, a recovery rather than like a hard training. And then I would do, if we can, 2 days a week of that 20 to 30-minute strength training. You're probably going to do 3 to 4 exercises. You're going to do sets of probably 5 to 6 repetitions, not maximal strength, but heavy and comfortable. Like feel good, feel strong, shut it down, save your energy for jujitsu. And we'll do those either on off days that you're not training hard or on technical days you're just going to kind of go in there and drill and drill and drill and then kind of shut it down or whatever. Get a quick lift in and then get out of there. But I want you to save your most energy for really hard, high quality rolling or high quality practices or whatever you all are
Drills.
doing there.
Yeah, drills or whatever. Yeah.
Yep.
That's very interesting because there's always been this emphasis, you've got to go and lift some weights because you've got to build your strength up, like, your shoulder, arm strength, lats and all those sorts of things so you can actually get a grip on. And by the way, this is a gi competition, so it's not a no-gi. So you've got to be able to grab hold of the gi, etc. That's very interesting there because not many people have ever actually said that to me. And I wanted just to ask you, because that's a really important point you just made, the recovery day. So as we get older, is it fair to say that we recover slower?
Yeah, that's very true.
So does that mean we have a heavy day? Well, what happens if you do 5 heavy days in a row, 5 really super hard days in a row, but not for competition reasons, but we just talk about normal day-to-day living. For some reason, I got 5 mates. Each one of them rings me up separately, says, let's train tomorrow. And each one of them, you want to keep up with your mates. So you train really hard for 5 days. Is that a dangerous thing to do as you get older? Should you have the discipline to say, no, on Wednesday, that's my day off. That's my recovery day. Or does it not matter?
You probably, at your age, you should probably have that discipline to shut it down for one of those days. I mean, is it dangerous? Like, are you going to have a heart attack? No. Are you going to have a stroke? Again, probably not.
But an injury, maybe.
Yeah. And here's the thing. The injury probably won't happen in those 5 days.
Oh, wow.
That's the thing. It'll probably happen 7 days later.
Oh, really?
Like that's the thing you're worrying about, because there's lots of little micro tissue and other things that are just saying, hey, we're overloaded. And you're not going to recover from that in a day. So you take that 6th day off. You take maybe even that other day off, and you come back and then you do 3 or 4 more hard days. And now stuff's that really angry and pissed off inside you. And then you take that half day off, and then you come up and you start warming up that last day, and then boom, something goes. And you're like, man, I didn't warm up enough. You're like, no, it was that dumb shit you did for 5 days, 2 weeks ago. Like that's what did this whole thing. So this is where we will have a not the most direct feedback loop. It's unlikely that it'll be in that 5-day span that something will go, but you may be causing some damage that is going to linger for a while. And then all of a sudden you get that next little thing that sort of pops. So injury is one risk. Absolutely. The other one is actually just diminished neural adaptation. So when you get to a point like that where central nervous system is fully overloaded, it actually starts to reduce learning capacity. So all that drilling and stuff you're doing, it won't stick as well. And so it's going to take you more repetitions and longer to actually make that position land, to make that technique become solidified, because you overcooked that system and it didn't have enough resources to actually go through neuroplasticity and make changes, because it was just trying to survive in that moment. And so it's diminished returns very big time.
That's a very interesting point you just made then. So, and I guess it changes for every individual, but let's say I am training and let's say I'm rolling, and I'm going in for an hour session, but after 45 minutes, I feel cooked. What I've noticed is that in the last 15 minutes, it doesn't matter what I do, even though because I'm cooked, I can do the extra 15 minutes, but I don't feel like I'm learning anything. In fact, I don't feel like I'm getting anything. I'm better off doing a training session in 45 minutes. My old boxing trainer, Jeff Finneck, used to say to me, and 4-time world champion, 4-division world champion, one of Australia's great in the WBC Hall of Fame, knows what he's talking about when it comes to boxing, trained Mike Tyson for many years. told me that you should be able to do what you need to get done in terms of aerobic training for boxing, preparing for a fight. You should be able to get that done in 30 minutes a session. See, because everything after that, there's no extra benefit. There's no gain in it, because if you've cooked yourself for the first 30 minutes, you get nothing else for cooking yourself for another hour or 2 hours or whatever. Overdoing it does nothing for you. And what do you think about that? Is that each one of us has a different threshold, of course.
Yeah.
But we need to know where our threshold is.
Yeah, I know. I like the way you say it at the end rather than at the beginning. The 30-minute thing is whatever. It's an arbitrary fake number.
Yeah.
But we certainly have some people that I've worked with who, boy, it might be 20 minutes. And these are young, healthy studs, right? So 22-year-old world champion and like 25 minutes, and that's a wrap, right? We're just getting it. And then we have 70-year-olds are the opposite. Doesn't matter, right? So it's just an individual. But your point is correct. Once you've gotten sort of past that point, especially if you're not legitimately trying for a world championship or something where it's like, hey, you got to get it done. Then what I like to do in that particular case is you can still get a lot of stuff done at really low intensity. And so one of the things we've used pretty consistently in situations like that is saying, okay, you're done. The roll's over. Don't go back for that next round. Don't go back for that, the next circle or whatever you're doing. Okay, you're done there. But let's go off to the side here and let's lightly drill the thing that we're working on today. And so let's say that in today's class, you were working on a particular guard pass. And then you practiced it for 20 minutes. And then you guys went and rolled. You did 3 rounds, roll, whatever. Okay, great. Let's go back to the beginning. We're going to finish up, you and your partner, and let's just do 15 reps each of that pass, each side. Take your breath, grab your water, whatever. Just go through it. You're not trying, you're competing. And you actually are cooling down. You're using this as an active cool down, but the last thing you hit your body with is that perfect repetition, that perfect technique. And it's just that final reminder of we set that neural circuitry up for a particular technique. Then we probably got squirrely and crazy when we were rolling because we went a little live. We're not supposed to be going live. It's supposed to be active drilling, but we kind of went live. Now let's finish right back on that movement pattern that we wanted to establish and use it as an active cool down. You'll get 15 or 20 more minutes out of it.
Yeah,
you're in zone 2. You're literally doing zone 2 work, right? But now you're combining it with very specific intention and you're cooling back down.
That's great stuff. I have just 2 quick questions for you. And one which is a bit perplexing in terms of me and a lot of people I talk to. It's this concept of HRV, heart rate variability. If I train really hard today, and I'm a big, I love measurement of anything because I come out of that environment in the economic sense. So I use my Whoop, okay? And it tells me if I have a really hard training session, like high level of strain, like training hard today, usually my HRV is low whilst I'm resting that night while I'm asleep. My HRV comes in lower. Why does your heart rate variability number look low after you've had a really hard training session, say the day before? What is that?
Okay, so a low HRV score is going to represent being in sympathetic drive. This is fight or flight. A high HRV is rest and digest and downregulate. So if you were to start exercising right now, you would see a change in your HRV, right? So you would go into sympathetic drive. It comes down like you're supposed to be alert, more adrenaline going, so on and so forth, right? Now, as a compensatory response to that, in the hours post-exercise, you'll see it rise back up. And this is what's called a hormetic stressor. And so this is the same thing with cortisol. This is the same thing with stress. It's the same thing with sleep. You do a little thing and you put a lot of stress in the system. And in response to that, it comes back and has this compensatory, exaggerated response in the other direction. This is why at night you take a hot shower and get hot, because the thing that makes you fall asleep is actually getting cold. And so you get really, really, really hot. Your body then compensatorily responds and gets you really cold, and you fall asleep. Now, in the case of high intensity exercise, if you're training hard and you're coming back the next day and your HRV is lower than normal that next day, what you're seeing is you haven't recovered yet. You're still stuck in excessive sympathetic drive, and it is a very good marker. And if that's happening chronically with you, then we're either don't have the stress resilience to handle that training session, and we need to build more physiological resilience, or two, we're training too hard. We've outkicked our coverage, and if that's what's happening, then that is a very good way for us to indicate either again we need more innate recovery capacity, or we're going to have to change training, or both.
That's very interesting because like we are all measuring things much more these days than we've ever have before, and we've got to be careful that the measurement is actually valuable to us,
Mm-hmm.
and that is what you're measuring and you know what to do as a result of measuring. And I really like that explanation. Thanks for that. So I'm just going to finish off now. Just I want to go back to vitality, and I want to go back to just talking about you've already launched or you're about to launch, depending on the time zones. You're a bit like Donald Trump. Donald Trump just released to the whole world Liberation Day today, which is a day that you're probably not even up to this, but it's a day that we've all been watching as economists in Australia, watching the tariffs he's going to impose on every country around the world. So, and we don't know. And so but at the same time, you've just released, Andy Galpin's just released his Vitality Blueprint business here in Australia. And quickly just summarize that again. What is Vitality Blueprint going to do for us if we want to access it, and how do we access it?
Yeah, you're going to have two options. One option is available now, and this is where you can go onto vitalityblueprint.com, and if you have a sufficient blood study that has been done and you have that as a PDF, you can go through what's called manual upload, and you can kind of upload your data, and then the software will analyze it, interpret it, tell you exactly what's going on and what's not going on. What's critically important here, I'm not going to go back and say, hey, your testosterone's low. If you're looking at it and it says your testosterone's low, that's not very valuable. What's more valuable is looking at a whole combination of interactions in your blood work that are going to tell you what's happening with your immune system, with your stress resilience, with your cognitive function, with your energy, with your recovery, with your anabolic capacity. You'll see all that. That's how we report things back to you. You can see the individual markers. That's all right there. That's no problem. But we can tell you about your hydration status. We can tell you if that was short term or whether this is long term. What's your sleep like? Like we can see all this in your blood.
Wow.
And it's right there in front of you, but people don't know what they're looking at. They're just looking at one marker at a time and saying, is that high or low? And as long as they're not all high or low, that's bad. And the reality of it is that's a really poor way, because if maybe next time we come back and we chat, but I could pull up any number of your blood tests right now and start shredding you through them, all from markers that are all within the normal reference range. And so this is the difference between looking at medical cutoffs versus our stuff saying, okay, are you performing at your best? Is your sleep as best as it can be? Is your recovery as best you can be? You're not at a medical threshold, right? You're not at a disease. I'm not telling you you're in disease or not disease, but I'm saying you're not performing at your best in this exact moment. So the software will do all that for you. It's the easy button, right? You can hit that thing and it'll tell you. And then it allows you to create your own custom program. And so you can say, hey, I want to use lifestyle only. Okay, great. This is exactly what to do. Or, I want to use supplements. Great. Here's what supplements to take. Here's exactly how much. Here's when to take them. Here, you can load it to your cart. And in Australia, it might be a little bit trickier, but
Can we so we can buy the supplements off the website?
Yeah, it's all right there.
Great.
If you want. And we don't have we're not trying to be a supplement selling company. So what we generally list is 2 or 3 options. You like Thorne better, like Momentous. Okay, fine. We don't want people to think we're just trying to sell them supplements. If you don't want to use supplements, say no supplements, and we'll do this all through nutrition. We'll do this all through lifestyle, or whatever. We try to make the program as software friendly and saying, this is what I want to do. Click and create my own custom button. And if all that's too complicated, there's a one button you can hit that just says just do it for me, Vitality. I'll just take whatever. I don't care. Just do it for me. I want one click, and it'll take care of it for you there.
Oh,
so that is all
cool.
available now. That's ready to go. And then again, depending on the day, we'll also be able to just directly order the blood yourself down there. So if you're just I want a fresh panel or whatever, we should have that. And I forget if Dan Garner was here, my co-founder, he would know. But I forget the way that it goes about. But it's something probably you click that order, a couple of days, you'll get a PDF with the requisition form, and then you can
take it to the doctor
over and do it all, whatever. Yeah,
so you go
I'm
to
not
the
exactly
pathology.
sure how that.
Yeah, there'd be a pathology clinic because actually our chief science officer, actually she went through that process and she said that there's a pathology company here in Australia who can do it as well. So so you guys have a pathology company. You give us the referral. You take the referral to the pathology. They take the blood, then they do the analysis based on your software or your system, and then they give you the answer. So she's already
It'll
been
all
through
come back always through our system.
back through you.
Your results will always be on Vitality. So you'll get a notification your results are in. You go to your Vitality account, and bada boom, you're up there and rolling. So I'm not exactly sure that workflow from the blood draw part, but somebody else can answer that question.
And I know that she got it done in San Francisco, but it doesn't matter. Because you got access. People got access to clinics to get their blood taken all throughout the United States. It goes back to your system.
Yep, doesn't matter. It doesn't matter who you use in the States. If you use LabCorp or Quest or anybody else, a lot of the times we just send a nurse to somebody's house.
Yeah.
Take care of mobile phlebotomist.
We don't actually have that process here in Australia where someone comes to your home, but I think it's a great initiative. I'm going to try it out myself. I probably will just upload my own results. I'm assuming though that the results of my latest blood tests actually cover off all the blood panels that you need to have. If not, I'll go and get another blood test, and maybe my guys here probably got your details, but I might just send a flicker through to you and just say, "What do you think, mate?" And we'll see what happens from there. And if you come to Australia again, or you come to Australia in the near future, I'd love to host you for maybe we go and have a bite of lunch or something, like have a mag. Maybe get Geordie to come down here and have a hang out with us. And my final question for you in that regard is: do you as a result of being healthy and being health conscious and being in this industry, do you have a beer?
Oh yeah, I do actually. My friend, my friend has a brand new beer company coming out that is going to be really, really cool with what they've done for. It sounds funny, but it's the healthiest beer in the whole world.
Wow, you serious?
Yeah, for sure. It's it's crazy.
When's it get launched? When is it? Is it going to be launched soon? I want to try this.
I have probably 3 cases in my fridge right now, but I don't know the exact launch date.
Yeah, okay. Well, what I'll do is I got a whiskey company, so in Australia, we won Australia's 2 years in Australia's best single malt. So I'm going to get from the team. We'll send a bottle of my whiskey to your team and enjoy it if you like a Australian single malt.
I do like. If I'm going to drink hard alcohol at all, it is 90% of the time going to be in the whiskey family, 10% of the time tequila, and that's it. I'm not touching anything else. So
I'm same here. So I'll send you a bottle of the Bird. It's called the Bird, not because of that, but it's called the Bird. Good to talk to you, Andy.
Likewise, man.
That was so good. I loved it. Thank you.